guys, it's Reki. Welcome back to another episode of Bonnie's World, which is where I'm teaching my friend Bonnie how to play Oxygen Not Included. And I'm doing it kind of organically. There's a lot of tutorials out there that will cite in on a particular aspect of the game and teach you everything that you need to know about that particular aspect of the game. But when you're first starting out, it's pretty intimidating, even given the tutorials. And the tutorials that Clay has got are really great. They're in-game tutorials. They're both written and video tutorials, and the video tutorials are really charming and adorable. They've obviously put a lot of work and thought into these things. But I really just kind of wanted to put together an organic tutorial that showed what could happen as you start playing the game. And I personally didn't really discover one like that. I've seen some playthroughs, but people don't really treat them like tutorials, and they don't really necessarily talk about, they don't teach you things as you go through. They may talk about the best order to do things, but I really just kind of wanted to show things as they happen. So Bonnie wouldn't have to stop every so often and go hunting for information on things unless she really just wants a more comprehensive dive into something. So, pardon me. I'm a little slow today, so I apologize if my speech patterns are a little halting. Alright, so these guys are currently sleeping, and this brings us to the end of cycle 1. And now that we've made it through an entire day, one of the things I want to talk about is managing your duplicants' time and managing your duplicants' priorities. So, let's start with time management. That's what this little clock up here is for, adjust the colony's time usage. And it's also hotkeyed to the period key, so if you hit period, it'll open automatically. When you open it, it looks like this. It's a schedule editor. You can actually make more than one copy of the schedule, so you can have different schedules for different things, which I always recommend. And you have different paint tools that paint the schedule to show your duplicants what they want to do. So the light blue is bath time, the yellow is work time, the green is downtime, and the dark blue is bedtime. A couple of things to notice. Duplicants need at least 2 segments of sleep time or they will not be rested. But they do not need more than that. And they do not appear, as of this current version of the game, to get a bonus from additional sleep. However, additional sleep will help them with healing or if they are sick. So what I often do is add in a new schedule and pretty much give them an all sleep schedule with a couple of hours of downtime for them to use the restroom and eat. And then I let them sleep off whatever injury or illness they have, especially in the beginning when we don't have a doctor. The icons that are printed here give you an indication of the hourly time as it relates to this cycle. So anything with a sun is going to be your early morning work hours, and anything with the moon is going to be your late at night work hours. And the reason these are important is some duplicants actually get a bonus for working during those times. And if that's true, your duplicants who are shown underneath will have an icon. So if there's a moon next to Ren, it means he gets a bonus for working at night. He's more efficient working at night. If there's a sun next to Joshua, it means he gets a bonus for working during the early mornings. And if they don't have anything, it means they can work whenever you put them. I usually leave them on the basic schedule to start with. I do rename this. You can rename it by clicking the pencil. And I usually name this as, shift 1. That's the first shift you start with. I always leave the alarm on. You can turn the alarm on or off by hitting this gear icon. And then you can reset shifts or delete a shift using this as well. I'm going to rename this, the sick shift, so that I know if they're sick or injured, I will move a duplicant here. And you can move a duplicant in a couple of different ways. You can either use this and select the duplicant, or you can select the duplicant and move him where you want him. The bath time slot is used for bath time when you have a shower built in the colony. And a lot of people will pass up building a shower because it only gives a +1 bonus. And it's not something you absolutely need. And it's certainly not something you can get in the very early stages of the game, the first several days. You need to have the ability to install plumbing and pump water in order to put a shower in. But I like to put a shower in when I can. I usually will put it right next to the bedroom, either on the inside or the outside of the bedroom, simply because it's right where your duplicate wakes up and it's the first thing that they will do. It gives them an immediate boost. It makes them a little happy. And sometimes that +1 is the difference between them being happy or sad. So I feel like, why not? You know, if as long as they don't have to run halfway across the map to get to the shower and then run halfway across the map to work, why not just put a shower right next to the bedroom? It takes up 2 spaces. You can even make it 3 and put a statue next to it so it's fancy later on. It makes them happy. And it's just a little mood boost. If they don't have a shower, they will use this slot to work. It becomes a yellow slot by default. So don't move this to before bed. I used to like to move it to before bed because it made sense, but they will literally stop showering and go work. So they'll go on downtime, then they'll shower, then they'll work until their shower spot is done. So they'll go halfway across the map to do whatever they're doing. Then they'll come back and they'll sleep, and it's inefficient. So always keep your bath time at the start of the shift, because then anytime they have left over in their bath time, they'll automatically use for work. Yellow is the work time. Turquoise is the downtime. They automatically start with 2 slots of downtime, and that gives them a downtime morale bonus of +1. In the very beginning, they don't really need more than that. But as you expand out your base and they're running longer distances to get back to eat, you're going to find that they're going to need 3 or even 4 slots of downtime, or some of them won't eat. They'll go straight to bed and then they'll start starving. And you wonder why your duplicates are starving to death. Well, it's because they don't have enough time to eat, so they're not doing it. So, the more downtime you give them, the more of a bonus they get. They start with 2 slots with a downtime morale of 1. Oops, I'm on the wrong thing. Sorry about that. If you give them an additional slot, now that's a morale of 2 for 3 slots, a morale of 3 for 4 slots, a morale of 4 for 5 slots. Once you start getting up into 6 slots, no more morale bonus. Now, there's a trade-off here. You can give them as much downtime as you want. That's going to give them a +4 to morale, but they're then less efficient and you're not getting nearly as much done. So it's better typically to give them a morale bonus by increasing the decor in their surroundings or building rooms that give them a morale bonus. And we'll get to that. I'm going to leave them with the standard 2. I'm going to cut their sleep though, which means I'm going to have to shift everything by 1. They only need 2 slots to sleep. So I'm only going to give them 2 slots to sleep. Now I could leave this at 3 morale and give them an additional +2, but they don't need it right now. So I'm just going to do that. And that's going to be their standard schedule for a little while. And then I'll change that as we go forward. Some things you want to keep in mind are pay attention to their morale, pay attention to their stress level up here. You can monitor their morale by going to their vitals, which is this heart here, and then hovering over the morale rank that they have, the number that they have in the morale category. If you ever over the morale category, it's not going to really do anything. Sometimes these have a tooltip, so like sort by, or they'll explain what something does, but this will actually give you the explanation and give you the breakdown of the duplicate's morale. So at this point, Ren has a total morale of 2 because he's a duplicate. They automatically like being a duplicate, so they get a +1. And then New Hope is what they start out with because they just come to this new place and they're hopeful it's going to work out. I don't know how long that New Hope lasts for, so you don't want to count on it for too long. You want to get them stuff to make them happy as soon as possible, but it gives you a little bit of a buffer. 2 shift break also gives them a +1. So technically, this guy actually has a +3 to morale, but because he ate a grizzly meal, he's only getting a -1. And in this case, grizzly doesn't mean it's bloody or crummy. They get that. It's just what Clay characterizes a poor quality meal, a less than default meal. Like a default quality meal will give them no bonus and no minus. Ultimately, you want to get them eating stuff that gives them a morale bonus, because that's one of the best ways for them to get a high morale bonus. They can get anywhere from, I think, +6 to +14 morale, depending on what you're feeding them. once you start getting into the really good food. And that's a nice way to give them a big boost. And as you can see down at the bottom, it says total morale need. That's how much they need for the skills that they've learned. If they learn skills that they don't like, then that number is going to be positive. And under skills learned, that number will be positive. But they also will get a morale bonus for interested skills learned that offsets this morale need. So we'll get into that more lately. And there's a bunch of different things in this panel. If you hover over the duplicant, you can double click to see that duplicant in detail. You can see what's causing them stress. You can see what's causing them morale. You can see what they've eaten, how many calories they need, how many calories they've eaten this cycle. You can also have a look at their health and what's improving their health and whether or not they have diseases, what diseases they are, how long they'll last, that sort of thing. If I double click Ren, it'll shoot to him automatically. He's down here in bed, but it also opens this panel telling me about him. It lists off his errands if he's got anything queued. Right now he has nothing queued because he's sleeping, so his idle is on the to-do list. But this to-do list will show up once he stops sleeping. If digging is a priority, it'll show dig resources here in this list. You've got some tabs here. These are definitely tabs. Status shows you everything about your duplicant status. Biography shows you everything about them that they started with, including, their special traits and abilities and what things are assigned to them, whether they have equipment or beds assigned to them, their skills, their learned skills, whether or not they've been exposed to germs and how likely they are to be sick, and any other properties of the duplicant. You can change their name. You can see the database entry on duplicants when you've got one. And you can change their outfits. That takes you to a different panel. It's a little confusing. I'm not going to go into it now. Once you've figured out what kind of schedule you want them on, day, night, what works best, then you also want to have a look at their skills and know which skills your duplicants are good at. So, for example, Hassan has a 9 in science, but notice he's got a -3 in agriculture. So we definitely don't want him ever doing any farming because he's going to be bad at it. And these pluses and minuses to skills affect the quality of food grown or how fast they are at a particular skill, how many calories something is worth, up or down, these sorts of things. So you definitely don't want your duplicates doing skills that they're inefficient at. In the case of Joshua, he has 4 in construction, 3 in strength, and 5 in agriculture, but he's no good in science. So the reverse of Hassan here. And then Ren is just good across the board at some various different things. So what we want to do is we want to go to this panel here that's got the up and down arrow because that's priorities. And your duplicates automatically show up on the left. Your different jobs are across the top. And you want to set your duplicate to do the jobs they're good at, and you want to make sure they never do the jobs they're bad at. So, for example, Ren is good at excavating, he's good at medicine, and he's got a pretty high strength, so he can carry stuff back and forth. And I recall I said in one of the earlier tutorials that attacking goes along with excavation. It's actually based off the excavation skill. So what we want to do is we want to set him to always prioritize these skills highly. Now, later on, if we have a lot of sick duplicates, we may want to reduce the priority of digging down to 1 so that he'll go doctor first and then go back and dig later when all his doctoring stuff is done. But for now, it doesn't really matter. It's just a way to mark time and make it so that he always goes and digs. He doesn't go off and supply or store. If everything is equal, they will prioritize what they do based on the building priority. So what I mean by that is, remember I said to you, I can prioritize things so they do them in a particular order. This is your building priority. You can set buildings as in structures to higher priorities, and they will call duplicates to do work at those buildings. Or you can set jobs to higher priorities. and the order in which your duplicants do things is based off of the building priority and the priority that they give to certain tasks. So in the example of Ren, if I have him digging as a priority and I have 2 or 3 different digging jobs, let's say I have him digging here as well to get rid of these resources, he's going to prioritize these jobs equally. So he may arbitrarily decide, he may work back and forth between them, he may wake up and do the one that's closest. You don't really have any way of guaranteeing he's going to work on what you want him to work on. So the way you do that then is by bumping one of the priorities here. So I would say bump this priority and at least get this dug out so these beds can be built in here before the end of the day. And then have him go dig this after he's done. So in this instance, what he'll do is there's no doctoring and there's no attacking, so he'll prioritize digging highest, and then he'll look at the digging skills and he'll prioritize them according to what has a higher priority than the others. Then once he's done with digging the highest priority item, he'll dig the lower priority item, and when he's done with that, he will look and see is there any doctoring or attacking, and if there isn't, he'll just start randomly doing any of these other things that's left. So let's have a look at Joshua. Joshua has a construction of 4, a strength of 3, an agriculture of 5, and a science of -3. And as you can see, the red skills recommend the ones that he has some stats in, which is good. That tells us what stats are used for these skills. And if I hover at their intersection, it says Joshua's strength skill is 3. And then we can just go straight up here to tidying, and it'll tell us about tidying and what skills they need. Tidying, supplying, and storing all use the strength skill because they all require carrying. So the higher a duplicant's strength, the more efficient they're going to be at moving goods around. And that's why Joshua has a red indicator here to show that this is something he's good at, and a red indicator here and here. And you'll notice that the higher his skill, the redder the item is. What we want him working on highest priority is building, because we don't ever want in the early game for building to be held up. So we're going to have him build first. We're going to have him back up, supply, and store, because we need buildings to continue to receive supplies in order for building to continue to be smooth. And we're going to have him store things when he is not doing any building. And that's how we're going to work it. Later on, we'll worry about giving him farming once we've developed that technology and we're out of the rush to build bedrooms and bathrooms. One thing we want to pay attention to is he has a negative in science. So we want to turn off researching, which is what uses the science skill, and make sure that when he's bored and just going through some of these other skills, he never comes and researches because he's bad at it. We want someone who is more efficient at it, like Hassan, to be researching. So Hassan has a science of 9. So we definitely want him doing all of the researching. And he has an agriculture of -3. We want to make sure he never farms. So we can actually put this farming on a lower priority along with tidying. And Joshua will build first and then split his time equally among these things according to what the building priorities are set at. So if I have a storage container calling on a 9 and I have some sweeping calling on a 5, he's going to supply to the storage container before he does the sweeping. And this is how you kind of keep an eye on priorities. Priorities are a little tricky, and sometimes they don't work precisely the way you expect. But if you kind of keep in mind that they're stacking your duplicates priorities on top of the building priorities, you kind of get a good sense of how they work. So now we've got everybody set up, and we've got schedules set up, and we are ready to continue into the next day. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and pause it here now that we've talked about schedule setup. And in the next video, we will get the bedrooms and bathrooms built, and we'll get a start on the lab, I hope.